How you doing? My name is Enoch Hankerson. I'm the creator and author of the Timeline Scrolls collections and also maps, because I also do maps as well. Use them as visual learning aids to learn about the history of the Nile Valley, in this case of ancient Egypt, that the natives call Kemet, meaning the land of the blacks, land where black people reside. This right here is the chronology. I'm gonna talk about a general chronology of ancient Egypt. A lot of people want to know about the history of the ancient Egypt. They see a lot of images, famous images such as King Tut, as you can see right here, which I'll go over. Akhenaten, as you can see right here. Hatshepsut, as you can see right here. Name them but a few. So I'm going to backpedal and started at the end. Why? Because King Tut is from the 18th dynasty. I'm gonna use King Tut. This is the family tree of King Tut. He is number 12 of 14. So I can show exactly before I even start this presentation, because I notice a lot of people don't even know what a dynasty is. So I'm going to try my best to unpack what a dynasty is. A dynasty is a succession of family rulers. And so King Tut belonged to the 18th dynasty. That's also known as the New Kingdom. New Kingdom because it's the time of, there was two Egypts, and the person, we'll go over this, who have done it, his name is Narmer. And so that's when it's unified. And it means, and there was two crowns, and the monarch, the pharaoh, the Ensi Petit, if you want to know how to say it in the hieroglyphs, of the ancient native Egyptians who called themselves Kemet. When it was unified into one, it was called a pageant crown. It was a double crown. But when it's not being worn or controlled by the monarch, and different royal families control it, it is known as, in scholarship, we call that intermediate period of intermediate periods. Because the monarch, the ruling family, is not control of both crown of both Egypt. King Tut belonged to the 18th dynasty that started with Ahmose and Ahmose Nefertari. As you can see here, there's 14 of them. On top, you can see the male, the pharaoh, the Ensi Petit, and at least one of the queens. A lot of the pharaohs did have multiple queens. In the bottom row, you see when you get to 12, you can see that that's where King Tut is. And I'm using King Tut as a form of reference because most people, the general public, most of them, they already know about King Tut. Needs no introduction. So this is an example of what a dynasty. Every dynasty didn't have 14 members. They're all, they're all different. But of the 18 dynasties, it was said to have 14. Now let me take it back to the beginning so I can explain the timeline. I'm just going to give a general, go through the different dynasties, the different periods, and explain it as best as I can, and hopefully it makes sense. So we're going to start at before the beginning. As you can see, that it's called pre-dynastic, meaning that there was a pre-dynastic era before the actual dynastic era, meaning prior to the dynasties. That's only mean when it was the first time when the state formations of the two Egypts was solidified and clustered together. Before that era, and the person who did that, we know his name is Narmer. How do you know Narmer was the first that brought the two Egypts together? Well, there's a place that's in Egypt that's called Hieroglyphopolis, and in that city state right there, they were, when there was excavation, they found this stela right here, the Narmer palette, and you can see on one side and they saw on one side of the palette he had the crown, the crown that was worn to control upper Egypt, and then the lower Hedjit crown, and the lower crown for lower Egypt by the Mediterranean Sea. had this crown right here. It was a red desert, called the desert crown. And we see that, which is the reverse side. So we know that Narmer had both of them. So that's how they know that Narmer was the one. Also known as Menace is the one that was the first NC Petit pharaoh to to unify before that. So Narmer lived when it was pre-dynastic, and he's also the one when that transition when happened. Before, in the pre-dynastic era, it is broken down to different phases. Badari, the Badari age, it's roughly around, and I'm gonna try my best to give timelines, around 4400 BCE, before Common Era, or BC. After that era, to about 4000 BCE. After that, it went to a different era that they call the Nakada stages. Nakadas 1, 2, and 3. Nakada, because Nakada 1 is from they know about from the information that was found from they call the Ratian cemetery, where a lot of that artifacts was found to put together and to describe what went on in the Nakada 1 stages. And that came after the Badari stage, so that's going to start around 4000 to 3500 BCE. After that, it went to Nakada 2. The information was found at the Gershon cemetery era, and that's going to be around 3500 to around 3200 BCE. Then there went to another stage that's called the Nakada 3 stage, from the cemetery of Sumerian, around 3200 to 3150 or 3000 BCE, also known as Dynasty, the lower part is Dynasty 0. Why Dynasty 0? Because this is the time when Upper and Lower Egypt, like I just mentioned, came together, and the monarch being Narmer, his wife, female counterpart queen, her name is Neith-Hotep. So I like to talk about the male and the females as well. As you can see, here's Narmer. This right here, they is called the archaic or early age. Or you'll hear it in scholarship, archaic or early age. That consists of Dynasty 1 and 2. Capital was Athenius, which is by Abydos. Okay, as you can see here. After that era, there became, we jump to brings us to the third dynasty. Why third dynasty? Generally to the sixth dynasty, sometimes to the eighth dynasty, depending on who you're hearing it from. This is the time where the monarch is still wearing the double crown. It's called the pigeon crown. When you have the control, you have the double crown, remember, from both Egypts. And during the third dynasty, that is known as the pyramid age. Why? Because that's when the first pyramid on the entire planet shows up, and that being Djoser. Djoser, from my report and other research that I know, Djoser had commissioned had the first pyramid, the step pyramid right here, by his vizier Imhotep, put together. So there are pyramids around the planet, but the first one is going to be Djoser, and that's the step pyramid. Third to the sixth dynasty, the monarchs, the ruling families are wearing both crowns. After the sixth dynasty, some scholars says eight. There was a time where the monarchs were not in control of the double crown, and various ruling families controlled it. So those are called intermediate periods. So this will be the first intermediate period of instability. And that lasted to around the 7.5 dynasties. At the 7.5 dynasty, there was another ruling family that was able to control both crowns again, and that would be Amenhotep II, as you can see right here. Amenhotep II, as you can see, he had the red desert crown for Lower Egypt, by the delta, and in the back of it, you can see on top, he's also wearing the white crown, which is the Hedge crown. So when you have both of them, it's known as the pageant crown. So he was the one that unified it in the second half of the 11th dynasty, Menhotep the second. As you can see, here is the military depiction of the military that he had right here. For ancient Egypt, and they also had mercenaries, or they worked together with the Kush Nubian archers. That was south of Kemet. Once you leave Kemet and you transition to the other territory, and it is mostly known as Kush or Nubia. Some scholars call it Ethiopia, just call it Ethiopia, not the Ethiopia of today, but depending on what writing you're getting. So Nubian. And also Menhotep II, some of his wives also came, he married some Nubian royal family queens. One of them being Kawit, and another one I know being Ashiet. So they were from Nubian, they were from Nubia or Kush, and those are Menhotep II, his queens. And a lot of times the queens, they already had their own military probably accompanying them. And it could be, some scholars says, where why he was able to utilize both of those armies from Egypt and from Nubian Kush to bring about that that second phase of unification. Narmer, how long does at the 11.5 dynasty, and that's going to last roughly to the 12th dynasty. Some scholars are pushing to the 13th or 14th, and then before, though, the ruling family was not controlling both the crowns, and what we find is around this time that Egypt allows some foreign refugees to come in from the Levant and area that we now call Palestine and Israel and Jordan, that they came into Egypt as foreign refugees, and they were partake and they were integrated into the Egyptian society. And then a coup broke out to where they controlled, where they took over the Delta, and so that's the reason why the ruling family from Upper Egypt, most of the time, those who's when the double crown is being worn, it is being worn from the ruling families of Upper Egypt, is we're going to see traditionally. During this second Emir period, the double crown is not being worn by the ruling family of the indigenous Egyptians. And then the foreign refugees did take over. The Hyksos, also known as the Hekakasut, and they controlled the Delta. So they was in the conflict of trying to take over the ruling family, trying to take over the indigenous, trying to take over the lower Egypt by the Delta. That lasts to around the 17th dynasty. At the 17th dynasty, we know that's when another ruling family from another thing is, you want to say, is Menhotep II, real quick. He come from an area known as Thebes. Okay, the people called it Wose, but Thebes is what we call it today. And the capital was moved there from Thinis. After Thinis, from first dynasty, I meant to say second dynasty, around the second dynasty, the capital was moved to Mennefer, Memphis. It's like halfway between Upper and Lower Egypt. When the Middle Kingdom came up, they changed the capital and they put it back in their home court advantage, because they're from Wose, Thebes, and that's where the capital was moved to. They did have deities, because a lot of these kings were also priests as well, and so a lot of them had deity names. And so where the Middle Kingdom, the deity up there, the prominent deity is Amenmut and Khonsu, male and female, and then the child, Khonsu. Same with the New Kingdom. When it was unified again and they were able to get that the desert red crown from the Hyksos, Hekakasut, and bring them back together, another unification, we know that is almost, as you can see here, Nefertari. I believe she's also from the area of Kush, Nubia, and her husband Amos. So that is where or we'll say, that's so Thebes. And again, the deities there is Amenmut and Khonsu. and that brought about, they call that the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom is known as the Temple Imperial Age, because you can see with the name that there's a lot, is the era of empire building and temples building. And the New Kingdom is going to consist of the 1819 to 20th dynasty. King Tut, again, he come from the royal family of the 18th dynasty. 1920th dynasty generally is known as the Ramesses dynasties. Okay. After the 19th and the 20th dynasty, it went into a third intermediate period of instability again. And this time it was through the dealing with not the Hyksos this time, but this dealing with the Libyans. They are now control of their Deseret Red Crown in the Delta. And so those two crowns are fractured. That's why it's an intermediate period. It was brought back together this time through a Kushite control. And that was the third intermediate period is the 21st to the 24th dynasty. The Delta, again, is controlled by the Libyans. The natives, Egyptians, were not able to get it. So working with the Kushite, they were able to get control of the Kushite control of Upper and Lower Egypt, as well as their own territories. So that brings us to the Late Kingdom, and that would be controlled by the 25th dynasty from the area of Kush, Nubia, and the headquarters was shifted to Memphis again, where it started at during the early Archaic Age, and it's also it was at Thebes. And it was also from the Kush, from the area of Kush is called Napata, and it was also there as well. So there was different places of political administration control. After the 25th dynasty, the ruler being Taharka or Tantamani, depending on how you want to look at it, there was some foreigners that came in, known as the Assyrians, working with the Libyans, and they were able to take it from the natives. And we're going to see from here on out that the natives do not get control of of Egypt again. At this time, it's the Assyrians. They have their puppet being the Libyans controlling Egypt. That lasted for a while. That's the 26th dynasty or the Satate dynasty. And then after that, the next one to come into power is the Persians. Around 525, the leader, as you see here, being Cambyses II. They ruled from their home court advantage in Babylon or Susa, not in Egypt. And this is called the Satrap dynasties. And usually there's a total of 31 dynasties, depending on which who are you hearing it from. So the Persian we now call Iran. After the Persian ran out of gas around 332 before Common Era, they a different foreign rulers came in from Greece, and we're going to bring us to the Ptolemy diet or the Ptolemaic dynasty. The Greeks came in with the ruler being Alexander the Great. He transitioned early on, and it was split. What he acquired was split with his 5 generals. One of his generals being Ptolemy, and he got control of Egypt, and that started as you see, Ptolemy the First, Soter, and Soter means savior, and that's going to start the Ptolemaic dynasties. It's going to last roughly around 300 years of occupation. So and also that's the time when we get the name Egypt, because Egypt or Egyptos is a Greek narrative. Like I said, that name, even though I'm using it, was not, or other people use it, it was not in use prior to the Greek annexation of Egypt. The natives called it Kemet. They also used terms of Tamari, Semitawids. But those are the native names. But the Greeks, they changed it to Egyptos, where we get Egypt. After they, the last of the Ptolemy ruler we know is being Cleopatra the Seventh. A lot of people don't know that there were 7 Cleopatras, and the one that's most famous is the 7th Cleopatra. She She transitioned around 30 BCE, before Common Era, or BC, to the Romans, and the Romans took over from 30 BC to into the Arab conquest of 641. And as you can see, some of the prominence, and this is the time you said, but why there's a cross? Because this is around the time when Christianity, um, um, came into existence, and it was under Roman rule. And at 380, as you can see right here, the Romans made Christianity their state religion. So everywhere that the Romans control, they insist that Christianity would be what they're going to. It's going to be the pantheon they're going to bring out. So Egypt is now being revamped, and is going to turn into a Christian state. Because and then all the temples that I showed you prior, the Romans is going to cancel it, is going to shut those down, and bring about Christianity. And that's why you see the cross there. After the Romans was defeated by the Arabs in 641, they came in there with Islam. So they did away with so that's why Islam is there today. And Arabs, they have Arabic for their writing script, not the hieroglyphs of the natives used, and that's why, as you can see, the Arabic below right here. And so they're in power till this very day. So, generally speaking, that's the general chronology of ancient Egypt. I'm going to show you some other things. Here's the map. Real quick, also created by me. I use it as another supplemental tool to go with the supplemental tool of that timeline I just used to explain what's going on. And you can see the delta that I mentioned. They had 20 nomes or sapats, city-states. Remember the red desert crown? There were 20 city-states. For lower Egypt, upper Egypt had 22. As you can see right here, as you see, they was controlled by the white hedged crowned 22 city-states. And when the monarch again had both crowns, when they were unified, then they were it was called the pageant double crown for the 42 city-states of upper lower Egypt. And here are some of the deities that were, for example, of the different city-states. When I mentioned Memphis, the deity there was Ptah, Sekhmet, and Nefertum. When you was at Thebes, that the people call Wose, the deity there, like I said, being Amenmut and Khonsu. Just for example, when they were at Thinis, on the first dynasty, right by Abydos. That's where you have a Sar or Anhor for Thinis. The deity was Anhor, right there, located right by Abydos. And after you going up the Nile Valley, 4,132 square miles, you transition when you get to the cataracts. That's when you transition into Lower Kush, Nubia, and you go through the 6 different cataracts. What is cataract? Cataract is basically rugged terrain. You really don't want to take your boat or canoe because it's most likely going to get demolished, destroyed. When you get to the 6th cataract, the area now called Khartoum, where that star is, and you can see that you're going up, because people are always wondering why you call it Upper Egypt, because we're going by the elevation. Mediterranean is the sea level being around 0. When you get to Cairo right here, that's around 75 feet above sea level, or 23 meters. Most world use meter. When you coming up through, you get to Khartoum, you can see 381 meters or 250 feet before it splits to the white and the blue Nile. Then the blue Nile is where most of the water coming down the Nile, at least 80% or more. And it starts at around Lake Tana elevation. You can see they're almost 6,000 feet above sea level. The White Nile is going to take you up to Uganda and Tanzania and Kenya region by Lake Nyanza, that some people, Europeans, renamed it Lake Victoria up there by. So that would be that for that would conclude what I want to talk about. Oh, one more thing I'm gonna say, Mott. This is a modern edition of Mott. Mott was more ethical codes that the native Egyptians used to govern their society. Mott is basically is stands for in general truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, and order. And that is what we use to govern the more ethical codes of the native when the native Egyptians was in power. And that's where I put right here. The opposite of that, what the people called Isfet, which is just the opposite of true justice, righteous, reciprocity, balance, and order. You know,
Wow, that was excellent, King. Where can they purchase this at? You have a website or?
yes, I do. They can go on Timeline Scrolls on Etsy, and then they can purchase those supplemental tools. There's the map is about this big. I do have bigger maps that you can see that schools will get. You know, for those who really want to unpack and learn this history. Here's an example. I don't know if you can see of a scroll. You can get them in different colors. I used a black one for this presentation. But I do have, there's other colors. That color was like a tan papyri color. I also have, there's a white option, you know, depending on the aesthetic of what people want. So they could do, all of them come in different colors other than the map, you know. Yes, if you want to purchase the map, please go to Timeline Scrolls on Etsy and you'll see them and get them to help you learn, take a deep dive, and learn more about the history of ancient Egypt. And I just gave a general chronology. Thank you.
Okay, now do you offer tours to Africa, or do you offer online courses or classes in the classroom? Anything for people that want to, you know, get even deeper into it?
Yes, we are in a class right now. I do teach classes on this right now. We're in a class where we learn about it, and people can't get in it right now because we already been in this session for a while. I have taught the class using in the past a book by the UNESCO, even though it's pretty old, over 30 years old. The volume I used was Volume 2, UNESCO Volume 2, General History of Africa, Volume 2, where it goes through all of Africa, but also go through we use the timeline as supplemental tools to help understand what's going on. And I use that book because there's various scholars in there. So you get different perspectives. You know, it's written like an anthology. When I teach a class, we're going through the different authors. You know, we look at their bio to see, you know, so we could get the position of where they're coming from before we even do any of their readings. I have taught a class, co-taught a class with other scholars using Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's book, Egypt, called Egypt Revisited. We thought that was a pretty good book, and even others to you know. But we use the supplemental timelines and the map, you know, because some people such as myself are visual learners, and we just need to take a good look. I appreciate you having me here, and if you want to have me on again, I would appreciate it. I also talk about the queens of the Nile. You know, some of these projects I did with our brother Renoko Rashidi when he was around. He lived out here in Los Angeles, and we worked on a project together that you saw when I showed the queens briefly. On that, I do have an older version of the timeline where I did it with the assistant Renoko when he was around, and you saw the Omic scroll that I had up there briefly. I worked on that one with that project with Renoko, and we did that in honor of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima back in 2019. So these we did them a while back, but you know, we use these as supplemental tools as visual aids.
Okay, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll edit this episode, and then maybe by tomorrow I'll send you a link, and you can look at it before I upload it and put it out. It'll be edited. Thank you again so much. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing it. If you want, go ahead and post it on my platform so we can blast it out and and bring some traffic to your site as well. And what you're doing an awesome job, and keep up the good work.